From the beautiful campus of Casper College, it's time to dive into the world of Casper College athletics with another episode of the Casper College Coaches Show. Now here's your host, Phil Kohler.
Welcome fans to Season 2 of the Casper College Coaches Show. I'm your host, Phil Kohler, and today I'm joined by the new head basketball coach at Casper College, Mr. Tom Parks. Coach, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me. I'm excited to do a coaches show. This has actually been a little bit of a dream of mine.
Sure,
Even at the junior college level, I think it's really cool when programs promote their athletics throughout campus
Absolutely.
and the community.
Yeah. So, Coach, you're a Wyoming guy originally. You're from Cheyenne originally. Talk about what it's like to be back in Wyoming, how great it is to finally be back in this great state.
Absolutely. I mean, it is great. I consider Wyoming home, and I think Wyoming is one of those states you see a little bit different level of pride when you're from Wyoming. You see all the Bucking Broncos stickers, you see 307 everywhere, and I feel like I'm the man I am today partly because of where I come from. So to be full circle and to be back in Wyoming and to be coaching junior college basketball at a great spot like Casper, I mean, it's definitely a dream come true.
Sure. So let's take it way back. You graduate from Cheyenne Central. You get an opportunity to play here in Casper with some state championships. After you graduate high school, you leave for a year. You go down to Air Force Prep for a year. Talk about what that decision was like and what you learned from being a part of the Air Force there.
Yeah, no, great question. So I guess if you would have talked to my friend group from high school, they probably would have said I'd be the last person to go into the Air Force. But for me, being 18 years old, I was just looking for really a great academic and athletic program. And when the Air Force Academy recruited me to go to their prep school and I found out more information about it, I became really excited because it allowed me to save a year eligibility but still play against high-level competition, work on my academics. I received an appointment to the academy, but the discipline, the time management skills, just the leadership I learned both from cadets at the academy and also people within the prep school. I mean, it taught me a lot in a short amount of time. I really had to grow up in a year, and it was a great experience. One of my head coach there, Bob Cavera, is still one of my mentors. Great coach, great person. I talk to him frequently. I saw him at the Final Four. We talk on the phone probably about once a month, so it was a great experience.
Sure. And Air Force Prep has been up here a handful of times over the last couple of years, and always blown away by the consistency and just the structure with which they run everything. It's so fun to watch.
Yeah, and it's actually very hard to learn too.
Sure,
I mean, we had guys in May, fast forward 9 months, that still would get mixed up with some things, but it's very complex system. But it's a cool system because it's definitely a feeder program right into the Air Force Academy. We had, I believe, all but one of our guys signed to Division I schools if it wasn't for the Air Force Academy somewhere else out of the prep school.
Cool. So you get an opportunity there, and then after that you choose to not go into the Air Force, but you choose to go to Sheridan College for a year and play for a year. What was that experience like?
It was great. I played in the Wyoming versus Montana All-Star Series, and so I got to play for Joel Davidson during that. And, when I was unsure if the academy was a place that I really wanted to be at, both basketball and academically and the military background, he's kind of the first person that I reached out to see if there'd be any interest, and he was interested. And it was a great experience because, I think Wyoming high school basketball, there's a lot of good players that come out of it. We also have a lot of multi-sport athletes. There's a lot of people that play a lot of different sports, so the sport specialization isn't always there. I was always a basketball player.
Sure.
And so sometimes I think when you're a high school basketball player in the state of Wyoming, you think, oh, I'm not going to go play junior college. I'm going to go play Division I. I'm going to do this. And you don't realize how good the junior college basketball really is. And that was an eye-opening experience for me, just with my teammates playing in schools like Casper College, and a lot of the other Region 9 schools, and playing against College of Southern Idaho on the road. You just learn really quickly, I have a lot of things I need to improve on to really be ready to play at the next level.
Right. So you've had an opportunity to be a part of Region 9. You also had a chance to play for Coach Davidson, who coached here. Right. Have you talked to Coach Davidson at all about what it's like to be the head coach in Casper?
He congratulated when I received the job.
Sure.
I knew Coach Gutting really well.
Cool.
I know Dan Russell pretty well.
Sure.
I saw Dan Russell this weekend. He came to campus a few weeks ago. So not as much conversation with Coach Davidson, but definitely more conversations with both Sean and Dan, especially Dan being from here.
Sure.
It's obviously a program that has a very strong tradition, and it also is a program that has had very good, community support. And so it's something that I was like, hey, who do I need to talk to?
Sure.
Who are the key players in the community? Who are the key supporters? Who do I need to know on campus? All those types of things. And everyone that I have spoken to that has some kind of history here has been great and instrumental in me kind of figuring out where my feet are.
Sure, absolutely. So then taking back the Wayback Machine, you get a year at Sheridan College, and then you head to Youngstown State for 2 years in Ohio. Being a Wyoming guy, what's it like to travel across the country and all of a sudden you've got this new, I've been to Youngstown, there's no mountains in Youngstown, Youngstown, Ohio.
Yeah, I think every place I went, was very instrumental in forming me as a basketball player, as a student, as eventually as a coach. And, Youngstown, I just took away. I had great teammates. I had people that I still talk to this day, people I was very close to. Again, my first taste of Division I basketball. And at the time, that I was at Youngstown, Butler, was really, really good. Yeah. They went to the Final Four back-to-back years. Cleveland State was good. Loyola was in the conference. Illinois, Chicago was in the conference. There was a lot of really good schools, Wright State. And so, again, it was kind of another layer of just when you think you've figured out college basketball, then you go to another place and you're playing against really good competition and really well-coached teams. And, you kind of – it's a little bit of a reality check. But it was a great experience. I had some successes on the court. I finished my degree at Youngstown. Like I said, I have some great friends there. But definitely was a transition. I think we visit different places, but then when you actually go and you live somewhere else outside of Wyoming or outside the Rocky Mountain region, but great people, great professors, great coaches, awesome teammates. So it was a really good experience for me.
So you talk about playing against this high-level players and coaches. And after you graduate from Youngstown, you come back a little bit closer to home to Northern State, and you get an opportunity to play for Don Meyer, one of the winningest basketball coaches in the history of our game. I think he's third now on the list after Coach K and Jim Boeheim. Talk about what it was like to play for him.
So it was a great experience. I was actually a GA for Coach Meyer. I played for Paul Sather, who is now the head coach at North Dakota.
Sure, okay.
But I had the opportunity to actually work with Coach Meyer in his office, help him prepare for his Nike coaches clinics.
Sure.
And really it was just that's probably when I realized that I really wanted to become a basketball coach. Up until that point, and I wanted to play as long as possible, and I had an opportunity to play professionally in Spain. But speaking with Coach Meyer, seeing how much attention to detail he had to just his clinics, hearing him tell stories. I was with him when his book came out.
Cool.
So I was able to just get a different experience than a lot of people have with Coach Meyer. It was post-accident. I remember the first time he told me that he loved me. I remember just him telling me how proud he was of me. And I think that was a side of Coach Meyer that a lot of his players didn't necessarily get while they were playing for him. He was very hard on them. He wasn't necessarily the coach that you walk in his office and have a 20-minute conversation about music or whatever else you want to talk about. And so for me, I saw how much love he had for coaching, how much love he had for his former players, and I saw everything that was going into these clinics, and I couldn't imagine him preparing, to beat a Winona State, or win a championship. And that's really when I started thinking, when the ball stops bouncing, maybe the right thing is to start coaching.
Sure.
So it was a great experience.
Yeah, so you get done with that, and fortunately for you, the ball's not done bouncing yet. You choose to go even a little farther than Youngstown. You head over to Spain to play for a year. What was that experience like? You see a lot on Twitter, these guys from Europe that are running all these great sets offensively and things like that. What was it like playing there, and then also kind of learning a little bit from the different coaches that you saw over there?
Yeah, it's definitely a different style of game. I would say, in the States, we have tremendous talent and athleticism. There's definitely some great coaches in the States that run some really good stuff, X and O's. But I would say that from a purity standpoint, I think basketball in Europe, especially if you watch EuroLeague basketball, it's such a pure level of basketball, and it's such a team game. You have great players that are capable, of making plays without many passes, but you just see the sets they run, how complex they are, the reads they make. And so I learned a lot. In the league I played in, it wasn't the top league, it wasn't the bottom league, so it was full of a lot of like up and coming young guys, and then also some of the older guys that have played in the top league that were kind of, on the tail end of their career. So it was a really interesting, and then a bunch of guys like myself that were, in their first year, trying to make something, trying to work their way up. And so it was a unique level of basketball, but it was fun. I was in a town of about 10,000 people. I showed up during siesta time, and I was like, where am I? Everything was closed down. I didn't see people anywhere, and I was like, is this real? Like, what did I sign? Like, what am I doing here? And then all of a sudden, like 4 or 5 o'clock hits, and all doors start coming up. You're like, dang, I didn't realize there was a shop right there, a restaurant right there, and people are hustling and bustling around the city. So it was a really cool cultural experience, and I think that was what I want to take away. I love the game probably more than anybody you'll ever meet, but I went over there and said, I'd like to play as long as I can, but I just want to have an experience where I can live in another country, learn another language, be around a different culture, learn about a different culture. And I really got that experience, and again, met some incredible people both from Spain and also some guys that were from the U.S. that were playing with me, people I still talk to this day.
Sure. So you play there for a year, you come back, end up back in the great state of Wyoming again as an assistant coach at Sheridan. What was the transition back to the United States like?
Well, ironically, and this probably isn't in my bio, I came back and I was a GA for Paul Sather at Northern State.
Okay.
And I worked for him, and I finished my master's degree, and my wife and I were a little burnt out. She was working at like a beef packing plant as a safety officer, which was, she probably could come on this show and have a million stories about that. But we were kind of burnt out, so we decided, well, let's sell everything we own and let's go travel around the world for 10 months, and that's what we did.
Cool.
And so I actually, to land back at Sheridan, I applied for probably 65 jobs.
Yeah.
So we're over there sitting on a beach in like Cambodia, and I'm like on my laptop applying for jobs, updating my resume, trying to make a call on a little flip phone we had, and I come back to the States with nothing. And I had a few interviews, but no real hits, and the job opened up at Sheridan as an assistant, and it was that Northern State tie. Matt Hammer was the head coach there. Steve Smiley was on his way out to Weber State. And that Northern State Wolves connection, even though I was only there for a couple of years and only 1 year as a player, it's just when you're a part of that, you kind of get welcomed no matter what. If you have that Don Meyer name attached to you, like, people look out for you. And so it was incredible because Sheridan, and I guess I can say this because they don't have a program right now. Sheridan has a very special place in my heart.
Absolutely.
It's where I met my wife.
Sure.
Again, it was my first taste of college basketball. I feel like I grew up a lot that year, both on and off the court. And so, we still talk to our host family from Sheridan. We still have ties there. When we were living in Florida, we would visit there, and see people. And so it was great. I walked into that building every day knowing that this was kind of the beginning of my college basketball career, and there was just a lot of pride in being there and just thankful to be a college basketball coach.
Yeah. So now you decide that you want to be a college basketball coach. You go through this long process where you're applying for all these jobs everywhere. Right. You go to Sheridan for a year, and then you end up down at Eastern Florida State College. Yep. And so, talk about what that's like. You've obviously been all over the world watching basketball now. But at the JUCO level, college basketball in Florida is something else, right? So what was it like to go down there and be able to be an assistant?
Well, I think that was like the whole mindset of going down there was, I see the Chipola's in the top 5 ranking. I see the Northwest Floridas. I see the Florida Southwesterns, the Eastern Floridas. And I just thought, I have a lot of passion for junior college. I've had opportunities to move on to 4-year schools, and I've turned them down, and I've just been very thankful because I think this level can have a huge impact on people, and I think it's a much needed level for a lot of aspiring student athletes. And so my thing was well, if I'm going to do it at this level, why not try to go where it's the best of the best?
Sure.
And so the job came out, and it was advertised at $2,000 for the year, and I was literally, when the job came out, I was sitting in the hospital with my wife, who we had just had our firstborn. So he's 2 days old.
Yeah.
And I just remember asking my wife, are you sure I should apply for this job? It's $2,000.
Yeah, sure.
I don't think it's going to cover the move.
Yeah.
And my wife is my biggest supporter.
Sure.
When you talk about understanding college basketball and some of the things that go into it, she's been on that side of it as a player. She's been recruited. And even though it's very challenging at times to be in that role, she supports me through thick and thin. So even though I wavered a few times, I was like, are you sure? Like, you're making a lot more here. Like, we're in a good situation. We recruited a good team. She's like, nope, we're going. We're doing it. And so the opportunity came, and we made that move a couple months later. And it was a great experience to learn about that level. And really, like, you walk into a jamboree in Florida, and you're just shocked because it's like almost every roster looks like a Division I roster.
Sure.
So,
well, and it ends up being the right move because then another year later you end up at State College of Florida as the head basketball coach there. You get an opportunity to do that for 5 years. How was that experience for you?
It was a great experience. That was, when I started this journey as a coach, I think it's everyone's goal. I mean, there's definitely some long-term assistants in the business that I think are great in that role, but I think most people want that shot to be a head coach and to call the shots and to run your system and to make your decisions. And so it was a great experience. It was a struggling program when we took it over. But I had a phenomenal athletic director in Matt Ennis, who is still one of my closest friends, mentor. If I have a parenting question, he's the person I call. If I have a major life decision, he's the person I call. And he's the one that gave me that opportunity. The people at Eastern Florida really fought hard for me to get the job. The athletic director there, head coach Jeremy Schulman, who's in the in the Florida College Association's Hall of Fame, was recently inducted. And those people just really bent over backwards. They knew that I was only making a couple thousand. They thought, man, he's worth a lot more. Like, how can we help him? And so I'm just very thankful because I think I've had a lot of people along the way that have helped me get to where I am today. And State College of Florida, again, kind of took the program from the ground up. It had success, in the history of the program, but the recent success wasn't really there. And so, we kind of changed the narrative. We played in multiple postseasons. We had a ton of Division I junior college wins that they hadn't really seen before that. We graduated 100% of our players that had spent 2 years there. And, we were super involved in the community. We just tried to, change the narrative of what people thought of the program, and I think we did a pretty good job at doing that.
Sure. And especially you guys had 72 Division I wins in your 5 years, but I think even more than that is your comment about the 100% graduation rate. And especially, I think there's this stigma of junior colleges that these kids are coming in and then they're not graduating. But for you to have that, for you to have a team GPA of 3.0 or higher all 5 years that you're there, is that something that you're looking to bring into Casper as well?
For sure. I think that we invest a lot into these student athletes, and when we recruit these guys, we make an obligation to their families to take care of them in every aspect. And the worst thing in the world is to have to call a parent and tell them, hey, so-and-so flunked 2 classes or things like that. It's very difficult because a lot of these parents, some of them care about the athletic side, but most of the time when you get a parent on the phone, where are they going to be sleeping? How many meals do they get? Do you guys do study hall? What are the classes like? Have you graduated your players? And I think that, I know it's cliche, but it is student athlete. Absolutely. And there's a lot of things that go into being an athlete, and a huge part of that is doing your job in the classroom. And even though we do have a lot of guys that maybe have struggled academically along the way, a lot of it has nothing to do with their ability and their capability to do the work. There's some pretty interesting situations and stories that our guys have gone through and overcome, but now they're in a place where it's a safe place. Sure. They're welcomed, they're supported, they have all the tools, and so we take a lot of pride in the academic piece. Honestly, I want to have them higher than a 3.0. I want to be recognized by the NJCAA as one of the teams that, was one of the most competitive academically. And so even though the tradition of our guys, they don't necessarily have a bright, academic background, sure. We want to show them that you're capable and you can do this. And, they could make millions of dollars playing basketball, and at some point they could still need that college degree to try to do whatever they want to do in life after they're done playing.
Sure. Well, in academics, just like with basketball, you instill a little bit of confidence in somebody, and all of a sudden, whatever happened in the past is now changed when they start to see, hey, I can do this, and all of a sudden now these new opportunities open up to them. So
absolutely.
So, Coach, you've taken this crazy route. You've gone to all these different places, and now you end up here in Casper, Wyoming. What do you think about Casper so far? Have you enjoyed yourself in the couple of months that you've been here?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been – it's funny because being from here, you're like, oh, yeah, I'm from Wyoming, but you don't realize, I was in Florida for 6 years, which we talked about my background. I mean, that's probably the longest stint I've been anywhere, since moving to Wyoming when I was a kid. And so it's great for a lot of reasons. I mean, we have family all over the state. To be able to see like my in-laws on the weekend. I mean, that's something that, we might saw them once or twice a year, maybe. And so that's great. I think you almost forget how neighborly people are. Yeah. You go to Florida and sometimes you might not get someone to hold the door open or the guy walking down the sidewalk might not wave back to you. And at first you're like, that's weird. Like, why didn't he say hi?
Right, yeah.
But you come here and you go through, Taco John's drive-through and the person's talking to you for 5 minutes while your food's already ready just because they're nice people. Absolutely. And so that's been great. But yeah, we've enjoyed the recreation side. We've enjoyed a lot of activities for kids. We try to be very involved in the community. We've got a bunch of new playgrounds that we've been to. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's been awesome. So
speaking of getting to see the in-laws a little bit more often now, the rumor is that you are not even the best basketball player in your own house.
Wow. Okay.
Is that? Right. I mean, that's what I heard. Tell me a little bit about your wife and where she kind of comes from.
Yeah. So my wife graduated from Cody High School. It's interesting because our paths kind of kept crossing. Okay. We met at the Wyoming versus Montana All-Star game. She gave me a hard time because I had a girlfriend at the time. So she said I was on my phone all the time in my room while everyone else was hanging out. But then I go to Air Force Prep and Sheridan plays in a tournament there, and I'm watching her warm up. And I'm like, I remember Lindy, and didn't really say anything. And then fast forward, I ended up going to Sheridan. Yeah. And she actually held the door open for my dad and I when we were moving my stuff in. Cool. And so, fast forward a few weeks, we started talking, we started dating. But she definitely was a very good basketball player. And that's probably one of the things that attracted me most to her is watching her play. She was actually what some coaches maybe wouldn't have loved because she was super flashy.
We're gonna cut behind that the back out, man. Passes. Before she watches this, we'll cut that out.
Oh no, she knows it. Behind the back passes, no look passes. Sure. I don't know if Sheridan has the records, but just punching the numbers, I would doubt if she wasn't the all-time leading assist holder in Sheridan college history. I think she averaged 8 her freshman year, 9 her sophomore year. Played Division I for a year. She got hurt. Played Division II for a really good program in Oklahoma for a coach that also spent some time in Region 9, Tom Webb. But she can play. I think her senior year she made 50-something free throws in games in a row. Okay. So she was top 3 in all the divisions for free throw percentage that year. Cool. So I choose my battles when we play horse and things like that. Make sure there's not a ton of people in the audience. Absolutely. But yeah, no, she was a really good basketball player.
So with that, you got 3 kids that are coming along the way too. Yeah. Give us what's going on with those kids.
My oldest Cairo, he's 6. He's at Fort Casper Academy in kindergarten. My 2 little ones, Sedalia, she's my daughter, she's 4, and Zaire, my son, my youngest, he's 3. They're both at the Early Learning Center on campus, so it's pretty cool to have that facility here. And they love it. I mean, they were super excited for that first snowfall. Yeah. They've been waiting for the next one. I'm like, guys, it's going to come. Sure. Don't worry, it's going to be here. But no, they love it here. It's funny, you kind of just pick their brain a little bit, so do you miss Florida? And they're like, oh, we love it. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's funny how resilient kids are and how easily they adapt to new situations. Sure. But they've loved the family time as well. And, I don't know, I think a gym's a great place to raise the kids. So Absolutely. My wife will pick them up from school and come to the gym, and we'll be finishing up practice, and they'll be running around playing with the team. And I think it's great for the team to have Absolutely. Those little ones around too. Yeah. So they love it.
Cool. Good. Glad to hear that. So Monday night, the Haunted House of Hoops. First time running it here in Casper. You've run it a couple of different places before. Tell everybody what that's going to be like on Monday night.
Yeah, so it's a fun community event. It kind of serves a dual purpose. First is to give our community a chance to kind of see our teams. Both men's and women's basketball team will be competing in some competitions, 3-point competition, dunk competition, a little shootout, maybe a little scrimmage. And then the other side of it is there's going to be like some contests and some games and activities for the kids in the audience, some relay races, musical chairs, costume contests. So wear your costumes, but and there'll be a lot of candy because it's Halloween. So we got the candy covered. But it's a free event, and it's just to try to get some excitement around the programs. But also just, no strings attached. Like, we're not looking for anything. We just want people to come out and have a good time. So it's Monday at 5:30 in T-Bird Gym, and, we'd love to have everybody there.
Absolutely. So then next week, you guys open up officially finally. Next Wednesday, you guys are at Western Nebraska. Next Friday, that you guys are finally back at home against probably a really good CSI team that's traditionally been pretty solid. How excited are you to finally get rolling with things?
I'm excited. It's ironic because part of me is like really excited, and part of me is like, still got a lot of work to do, But I think any program is probably saying until their last game, we still have a lot of work to do.
Right.
It's kind of always a work in progress, but I'm excited. We've had some jamborees and things like that where we've got to play against different teams, but it's something like putting on the game jersey for the first time, and being on the real official first road game, and playing in front of fans that are your fans. It's going to be a really tough start to our season. We play a lot of really good opponents. We play, out of the 30 teams on our schedule, we play 29 Division I junior colleges. We play one all-star team opening weekend on Saturday, but it's not, we don't really have a lot of games on the schedule where we can't show up and not win. So it'll be a good test, and I think it'll prepare us a lot for Region 9 play, and there's a lot of really, Western Wyoming returns a lot of people. Central Wyoming returns a lot of people. Gillette, obviously, having a new program coming back. They've obviously had a ton of success before things got shut down, and I know that community's super excited to have a team there again competing in that brand new gym. So it'll be a good test, but I'm excited.
Absolutely.
Very excited.
Well, hey, Coach, thank you so much for your time. Next week, we'll delve into a little bit more hoops and then get the season started next Wednesday.
Awesome.
All right. Hey, thanks, Coach. Appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you next week.